for everyone who's joining, and if you aren't aware, my name is Melanie. I am one of the co-founders and managing partners of Volition, and we serve to elevate entrepreneurship through one-on-one coaching, as well as through skills-based training with a lot of our partners across Canada and Europe. And we also do community events, which is where we first met Arthur. So one of our events we're most known for is our pitch events. And Arthur came to our Pitch BC in July of this past year and happened to come in first on audience vote. So people really love what you're doing, Arthur, and I'm really excited to tell people about it. And so we set up these founder chats back in April as a way to help those in our entrepreneurs in our ecosystem gain more visibility, tell everyone about what the cool stuff you're doing, and just kind of spread the word as much as possible. So we're really happy to have you here. And so everyone knows Arthur is the co-founder and CEO of Verdi. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, that's exactly correct.
Perfect. Yes. And I mentioned earlier that Verdi, that you've developed an intelligent targeted irrigation system as a service. I don't even want to try to explain it. So at this point in time, I think the best thing for us all is if I hand this to you, and I would just love to know, what is Verdi? What is Verdi, and what is the story behind it, and a little bit about who you are as well. So essentially a whole bunch of questions rolled into one. Tell us a little bit about yourself question.
Yeah, it sounds good. So once again, thanks for inviting us to be here. We're really excited. I saw that my co-founder Roman joined the chat as well. So hello from Verdi from both of us. And so myself, of course, I'm Arthur. I'm a co-founder at Verdi, and my background is in engineering. And I studied at the University of British Columbia.
Right.
Actually graduated this year. So fresh out of school.
Congratulations. Yeah, amazing.
Excited to be building a startup right now. I think it's one of the toughest things you could be doing, but also very fulfilling. So very excited to be doing it. And so at Verdi, what we do is as you said, we develop intelligent targeted irrigation systems, and we'll get into what that actually means in a bit.
Yeah.
But essentially what we do is we're helping farms to optimize areas of low quality and low yield in their crops.
Okay.
And in the short run, that enables them to increase their profits and as well as sustainability at the same time.
Cool.
So if we kind of step back and look at the kind of context behind all of this, so we look at, there's climate change going on in the world, global warming, and it's making the environment for agriculture a lot more volatile, and in some cases, it's making it less conducive to growing food. And especially right now with the wildfires going on all over, not only do you have farms burning, but also the smoke is tainting crops. So that's a huge problem for agriculture. So rising temperatures don't just result in, say, fires or natural disasters. It also results in water shortages and can affect the quality of the crops that we're producing right now. Yeah. So we're helping farmers to combat this by making irrigation really precise. So that's where this idea of targeted irrigation comes in. So your traditional irrigation systems, they kind of operate like the lawn sprinklers you see at home.
Okay.
So they give every plant the same amount of water. And that really works for our backyards. It keeps the lawn green. But when you're doing that with high volume crops, and especially high value crops, say like wine grapes, that's actually damaging the crops that you're working on. And so it creates these areas of low quality and low yield that show that your crop is not optimized. It's kind of standard. So what we're doing is we're creating this irrigation system that can make traditional irrigation systems much more precise. So now instead of managing your farm at the field level, you can manage it at the plant level. And you give each plant the exact amount of water and fertilizer that it needs. And by doing that, you can eliminate those areas of low yield and low quality, bring up the kind of standards of your whole crop.
Oh, this is fascinating. Okay, so how did you come up with this? Like, why is this important to you? And where did this kind of like light bulb moment happen for you and your co-founder?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've got a team of 3 co-founders, and for all of us, we come from agricultural backgrounds. So like Roman actually grew up on a vineyard, so perfect for our first customers. Our co-founder Jackie, his family did chicken farming back in China. And then my own family used to do rice farming. So I think for all of us, we have a sort of like, we feel a cultural connection to agriculture. So that's definitely one thing. And especially for, I think, people in this generation, like we're interested in solving problems through about sustainability. And that's actually why I personally went into engineering to study, use tech to make an impact on big problems in the world. And in that process, along the way, I actually worked on a couple agriculture related projects with Google X, and that's Google's basically moonshot lab. They do a lot of crazy things. If you've heard of like their self-driving cars or internet balloons, that's where it comes from. And while doing that, we basically got to meet a lot of their customers as well as farmers in the field. And we actually found out that, hey, there's these gaps in the market where farmers are aware of it, but no one is really building commercially available solutions to them. So that's where we thought, okay, this here, targeted irrigation, is one of the things that the industry is moving towards and they want it. Now someone needs to build it and make it commercially feasible.
Okay. And I know you already have some partners. You were just talking about how your first customers are wineries. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about like I'll get into what this year has looked like in just a moment, but just in general, when did you start Verdi?
Yeah, we launched in March of this year. So that's basically, we treat that basically as when we incorporated. Before that, it was basically kind of casual and part-time as students. So it wasn't until March that we really worked on it a lot.
Okay. And what has that been like, kind of getting your first customers, and what's it like working with wineries? Just curious about your process. Like, how's this all been like for you?
Yeah, so for one, it's awesome to be able to visit wineries, especially
of course.
during shutdown, that you can say you're there for business, and it's true. But I think for us, like, one of the things that struck us about this market is that it is very tough. And that's what a lot of people, like investors, tell us, like, great team, great progress, but very challenging market to be in. Main reasons for that, agriculture is slower than your typical market. Like, there's a cycle to every year of growing, maybe sometimes just cycles, but still that's a little slow. There's a lot more consideration when there's consideration of risk. So when they're trying new tech, they don't want to just roll it out across all of their farms at the same time. They want to try it out chunks at a time. So so that was a valuable lesson for us to learn being in this market. And it spearheaded a few discussions on how can we sell faster. So, still be a viable and fast growing business, but at the same time, like, make sure we're delivering on the value that create.
Cool. And who are you already working with?
Yeah, so we're working with Arterra Wines Canada. So they're Canada's largest wine company, and we're piloting on one of their vineyards called Perfect Hedge, and that produces Laughing Stock wines. So some of you might be familiar with Laughing Stock. They have the really interesting like stock ticker labels on their wine bottles. So check them out in the liquor store. And we're working on their Malbec grapes right now, harvesting in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, cool. All right. Fantastic. So those who have just joined us, hello and nice to see you. Make sure to say hi. This is Arthur Chen. He's the co-founder and CEO, or one of three co-founders, one of three, and CEO of Verdi. So essentially, we're just gonna be chatting for the next kind of 20 minutes. So if you have questions for Arthur that you want to ask, whether it's live or later on IGTV, just a reminder to submit those, and we're happy to have some more conversation here with you as well. But Arthur, what I'd love to know is, okay, so you launched in March, have already had, it sounds like, some really interesting lessons learned. Did COVID and all the things affect your, like, any assumptions that you'd made for this year? Did it affect kind of how you went away about business, positively, negatively? What does it look like, and what have those lessons learned been for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say that compared to most businesses, like anything within agriculture wasn't affected as heavily. But we were, because like agriculture, of course, is essential. You gotta eat, you gotta produce food. But for us, we were affected in a couple ways. So one of them was that it slowed down our sales cycle a little. So we were talking to one of our customers this year, and originally the plan was to actually there were two customers that we're gonna close a deal with earlier in the year, but then due to COVID, one was in the States, so we couldn't really go due to the border shutdown.
Right.
Like we couldn't justify going, and then the other one was closer to home in Canada, but like it just once COVID hit and shutdown was started, it created a lot of problems for that company, and so they were trying to put out those fires, and like we had to persistently kind of follow up with them. It did end up working out, but yeah, it took a while.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, we heard that from a lot of people we were working with, and we had a lot of questions around how do I do sales virtually even like how when I'm so used to being there in person. And I imagine in your line of work that being there in person and working with these farmers in person or working on the vineyard, going to the vineyards and being there, is that a large part of your sales strategy to be there in person?
Yeah, currently it is a large part, but we're finding that as we produce results and we kind of refine everything, like it becomes easier to sell it virtually.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. So right now, are you predominantly focused on Canada then, it sounds like?
Yeah, so we're starting with Canada, specifically the Okanagan Valley, so right here in BC, relatively close. But the real kind of big market in North America is actually in the US. For example, like in California, Napa, Sonoma, those kinds of areas where it's just orders of magnitude of farms more farms than up here in Canada.
Okay. So if you're looking at the vision of Verdi, is that kind of where does that fall on your kind of vision timeline? And what's the like big, hairy, audacious goal for Verdi for the next, I don't know, however many years, 5 years?
Yeah, good question. So in terms of like timeline and getting to the States, like the plan is to start next year. So right now we're already talking to companies down there about how we'll be able to work together for like about 6 months from now. That's when we'll start the kind of partnerships. In terms of what we're trying to do on a grander scale, so there's this overarching trend, of course, of climate change making it harder to farm. And at the same time, there's going to be 9 billion people on the planet in a few decades, and we have to somehow double food production to meet those goals. So farms are going to be operating in an increasingly limited environment of resources, and they're going to be pressured not just by demand, but pressured by climate change as well. So we want to help them to adapt to climate change and the changes that they're going to be facing. So that means we're going to be helping them to optimize and minimize their use of resources, so be sustainable, and then use that to actually maintain or grow their profitability as a business.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what we call climate resilient agriculture, and that's what we want to roll out across the world.
Climate resilience agriculture. I'm curious, for those who might be particularly interested in this topic, is there anywhere you would suggest they go to get resources, or there kind of like groups to get involved in? I'm just kind of throwing this out at you, but I know it's a topic, like you said, it's a topic that a lot of people are talking about now. So I'd be curious if you have any suggestions for where to start.
Yeah. So in terms of where to start, good question. I'm trying to think of it right now.
Just on the spot, yeah.
Yeah, I would say like in terms of reading and like just getting involved in the network. On LinkedIn, there's a really big network of, I'd say, companies and experts, professionals who are involved in this space. Some notable companies within trying to like use agriculture to increase profit and sustainability include Indigo Agriculture. They're actually the hottest startup in agriculture right now.
Okay.
So go check them out if you're interested in the space. Couple other cool things you could look into. So the United Nations always publishes reports on this kind of thing.
Okay.
They do focus more on the kind of low resource country demographic, but they do talk about like sustainable agriculture in other parts of the world as well.
Okay. And I know that you also, from my impression, agriculture is not kind of the only area that you're also interested in terms of solving tough problems for the world, as you said in a recent email exchange we had. And I'm curious about like when you're talking about how it's important to you to solve these tough problems in the world, what does that mean to you, and how do you want to let's just start with that. What does that mean to you, solving tough problems for the world? What does that look like for Arthur Chen?
Yeah. So in terms of solving tough problems, I think at the end of the day, I think part of it comes down to like, um, I think initially when you make the decision to work on a problem like this, it's part of it is like fulfillment, right? You want to somehow find purpose in what you are doing.
Yeah.
And so especially like when you have a vision of what to achieve in the world, you're like, okay, that's the vision I really believe in.
Yeah.
But I think as you kind of work on it and you see people actually using your product and you see results coming out from it, you kind of realize that it's like you're almost serving other people. And you get a sort of high on like the successes of the people you're helping.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that kind of like at the practical level, that's what kind of drives you forward, especially given that when you're building a startup, oftentimes it can seem like there's roadblocks everywhere, but you focus on what's succeeding, and that's your customers, and you're happy.
Yeah, seeing the impact that you're having at kind of that what am I trying to say? Like I want to say butterfly effect level because I don't have any better
Yeah,
words for it right now, but I know what you're talking about. Like seeing the impact it's having on other people's lives and maybe ways of thinking about things too, is really very cool. So thank you for doing that. And I think it's like it's really hard. Oh, I mean, getting into entrepreneurship in general is a very difficult track to take, but I think like getting into entrepreneurship when it's something like this can be it feels so big. I feel like to be solving these kind of like larger scale problems that are going to have like a really huge impact on the world. I think it's incredible what you're doing, and I'm really happy that you found your co-founders and that you did this together. So thank you for that. I think we're all excited to
thank you.
see where this goes from here. And kind of on the note of the difficulties of entrepreneurship and all the lessons you've learned that you've already talked about, we always love kind of like passing on the knowledge in our community. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about, first of all, is this your first startup? Is this your first business endeavor?
I'd say it's the first formal one. I did start something before, which definitely learned a lot of lessons from that
Okay.
were handy in Verdi, but I wouldn't say that one was a formal business. We
Okay.
didn't incorporate.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But still, yeah, okay. So I'd love
yeah.
to know, as kind of a first time startup founder, co-founder yourself, over the past, I know you incorporated in March, or things really got going in March, but you were working on it previous to that. What kind of tips or insights would you have for your fellow entrepreneurs, particularly those who are maybe just starting out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'd say this doesn't just apply to people beginning an actual business, but really to any sort of professional into careers, whether you're starting like entrepreneurship, starting a new business, or entrepreneurship, starting something within your community or existing company.
Yeah.
So I was actually on a panel last week, and this was something that came up a lot. So
Okay.
um, like as entrepreneurs, we have access to limited resources. Sometimes most of the time you operate in a negative in the beginning of your company. So how do you optimize the use of limited resources to
Mm,
accrue more resources and like get traction for your company?
yeah.
Um, so the kind of thing we talked about was that it's actually not that it's a very straightforward answer. It's that you just have to ask. Like most of
Mm,
the time, to access the resources that are out there, which there are many,
hmm.
more than you can possibly probably apply and request for. But there's a lot of resources out there, and it's not just the formal ones that say, pitch competitions or Volition, right? It's not just companies that are officially helping you out with entrepreneurship. There's also like your own network of friends. They might know people who may be able to help, or they may be able to help themselves. Like Verdi, a lot of our work, it's not just done by our co-founders, but also friends who have, were interested and helped out on a casual basis. So definitely like just ask. And like the worst that can happen is you get a no, like I don't have time or I'm not interested. And like that's not a very risky consequence
Yeah.
to just ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Just ask. And I think on the side of what we can do as supporters of entrepreneurs in our communities, there's been a lot of, obviously with COVID, there's been a lot of really good kind of graphics that I've seen around how to support small businesses at this time. And even like talking about friends and family, even if you have a friend or family who's an entrepreneur, has a startup, ask them how you can support, even like honestly sharing things, like liking, sharing, just talking about what your friends and family are doing when they are entrepreneurs at any stage is incredibly helpful, and giving feedback. Like feedback is so helpful. I feel like it's the small things that are underrated. Obviously, the big things also really help, but there's a lot of small things people can do to support entrepreneurs in their community that I think are a bit underrated. Just giving feedback, talking to them, trying out, testing out, be beta customers.
Yeah.
I think and then on the side of the entrepreneur, asking people to do that, and just asking people to share something is really, really helpful. So that's fantastic. That's really great advice. And one that I find, obviously with Volition and our pitch events, we always recommend people have an ask. And I don't know, like people are generally surprised to hear that probably only about a third of our pitchers come prepared to ask for something. And a lot of time they say it's because they're not raising funds. And we'll say, yes, but every entrepreneur needs something, whether it's mentors or networks or money or whatever it happens to be, or feedback. There's so many different things that we always have an ask for. And I know it can be hard. I don't think we're taught how to ask for things a lot of the time. Or maybe it just doesn't come naturally. I'm not quite sure, but it's something that we find we teach people. So I'm curious, like, was that like a hard lesson learned, or did that come naturally for you? Just like, yes, you actually have to ask for things. How did you learn to do that?
Yeah, good question. So I think part of it is just having a sort of, not fire and forget. I feel like that's too strong of a term, but sometimes it's just like you have to steel yourself against the no and just kind of don't care about it. So you send out a request.
Personally. Yeah.
Yeah, and most likely it's going to be a no, and you just have to deal with it. I think the harder ones has been talking to people on an informal basis. So we're say suggesting something completely kind of new. So for example, like we were talking to this one entrepreneur in Vancouver. He's got a pretty successful business, and essentially at the end of it, he agreed to pay a little bit of a marketing budget just out of his own pocket. But of course, that's not something that is openly advertised, but you kind of go out there and you network yourself and up into conversation.
I assume that also didn't happen on the first conversation.
It was the first conversation.
It was the first conversation. Okay. Yeah. That doesn't usually happen.
Fair, yeah. It wasn't too
amazing.
Much, but
you must be very, very good at what you do.
Not necessarily. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, that was like our co-founders together. Like we're able to work on that. So cool. It's a team effort for sure.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so on that kind of theme of asking, what can we, your community, do for you? So what's your ask of us here today?
Yeah, I guess just kind of to put this out there, I'm not sure if investors frequent Instagram, but we are raising a tranche of $100,000 to $150,000 right now. We recently got into Creative Destruction Lab as well as Alchemist down in Silicon Valley.
Oh, nice.
That's some of the kind of exciting things we have going for us in the coming months. But I think more for this kind of community on Instagram. So if you know of any, say, friends or family or just people who are involved in wineries or any fruit or nut companies, feel free to let me know. We'd love to connect with them.
Cool. And if you know any investors, please do send them Arthur's way. We'll also share this outside of Instagram, and it'll be on YouTube. So there's people outside the IG community we will get this message out to spread the word about what you're doing, Arthur. So for those who just joined, we're just about to wrap up and we only have a couple of questions left. So make sure to come back. So this was kind of like it'll be a 30-minute chat. We'll have it on IGTV and YouTube. So come back and learn a bit more about Arthur, about the origin story of Verdi, and everything they're doing with this intelligent targeted irrigation system, which is going to save a lot of water and money, it sounds like, for our farmers, which is fantastic. So go and learn. And also, I believe on your website, so verdiag.com, I believe that there's a product demonstration. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a product demonstration, and actually just this past weekend we filmed a new one, so we'll put that online soon. But yes, you can see our product, pictures of it on our website.
Neat.
I'll comment it below.
Yeah, perfect. I'll keep talking while you do that. Because I think like it's really neat to be able to visualize what you're talking about, like these kind of more technical
Hmm.
concepts. I'm curious to watch what you've come up with, this new video that you have. So go there, check it out, share the love. I believe that you're on Twitter and LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And what is the best way for people to connect with you directly?
Yeah, so we're open with anything really, but best way is probably any social media channels. So Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, I guess you can talk to me directly.
Okay.
That all works. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, so my question for you is there anything we haven't talked about yet today here that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. So
It's funny how this
um,
throws people.
yeah. It's like, what question did we not ask
Yeah,
anyone,
yeah.
or you wish we asked?
Yeah.
I guess like one question just to the community, or sorry, one kind of comment to the community is I think nowadays like there's a lot of hype, especially on the news, about like all these tech startups out there, and they kind of follow like they're doing really great work, and it's really amazing stuff that they're doing. Like a lot of my friends are doing these kinds of startups, but like the things you build are say apps or developer tools or things that do add a lot of value to the world, but at the same time because the whole industry for tech, like all these smart people are focusing on making money fast and building something that's big and cool in a short amount of time. But we often neglect the kind of important problems that are out there, which is like things like making agriculture, better, more efficient, climate change, or lots of things around the world that could be solved.
Yeah.
So just don't it's great to focus on like a product that like is cool for its technology, but don't forget the bigger problems that are out there and like kind of work a way to eventually tackle those problems in your
Yeah.
careers. Yeah.
So is there kind of one thing we could all do to work towards that, and particularly like in the industry that you're in, to support the agriculture industry becoming more sustainable? I can't remember the term you used now. Was it regen? What was that word? There was a
Or
term.
climate resilient agriculture. Yeah,
Yes.
or farm.
Is there kind of like one thing we could each do to educate ourselves or to contribute to um, decreasing our own water usage? Or I'm not sure what you would recommend. Is there anything that you would ask us to do?
Yeah, I would say just pay attention to the labels
Okay.
when you're buying food. For example, for any fresh produce.
Okay.
Right now, there are not as many, say, certifications, but in the near future, there's going to be a lot more certifications in a way of, say, like water usage or pesticide usage,
Right.
like organic. So just pay attention to those.
Okay.
They do matter in the long run if the consumer market has that demand. Yeah.
Yeah. Neat. Okay. And so if we're looking at the water labels before these certifications come out, is there anything that's like a red flag that that we should stay away from?
Um, Not particularly at this
Okay.
point, although there are certain foods that take a lot more water. Like for each almond, for example, that you eat, it actually took a gallon of water to produce one
An
almond.
almond.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. But I know lots of people like it, so
That's okay. What's a better nut to eat?
pistachios would actually be
I love
good. So,
pistachios. I will switch to pistachios for you. That is
okay.
something I will do for the planet and for Arthur. Um, okay, fantastic. No, that's really, really interesting, actually. Very interesting note. Thank you very much for that little what each one of us can do, not just switching from almonds, but kind of watching for the certifications that are going to come out. That's really interesting. Okay, so as a final question, what I always love to ask is, what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest one is like just having a really great team. So being able to like, when things are great, you know that like you can celebrate it as a team. And when things are not so great, which often happens for a startup, like say there's a challenge coming up or a problem you need to solve. I think of course, it's a very stressful situation to be in, but when you can get together as a team and then figure something out
Yeah.
together, It's quite a fulfilling experience.
It really is. Yes. I 100% agree. I love my team. They have, I feel like this year has been just one thing after another of trying to sort things out together. And I just like, I am speechless of how incredible it is to have a team that you love working with and trust and respect and all the things. So thank you to my team as well. Okay, I love that. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for being here today and contributing your time and teaching us about Verdi, teaching us about, I forgot it again, resilient agriculture.
You can just say like climate smart agriculture.
Climate,
That would be one
goodness,
way.
I can't believe I keep forgetting this. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
I'm going to
good.
write
Yeah.
it down so that I will remember it. But I don't know if anyone else is in the same boat as I was. I can't remember these things, apparently. But thank you for teaching us about that and about the little things we can do, and also talking about your journey about through entrepreneurship, things you have learned. I know, are you part of the, did I see, is this right, that you're part of the entrepreneurship at UBC?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's our incubator. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So you were on a panel last week. Do you have any other speaking things coming up that we can watch for, or anything we can?
Yeah. At the moment, nothing coming up, but
Okay, we'll keep our
we'll
eyes out.
post it on our social media channels when we
Okay.
do.
All right. So everyone go to verdiag.com and check out their Twitter and LinkedIn. Make sure to give them some love and check out what they're doing and follow their journey. And otherwise, thank you everyone who is joining us, whether you're here live or later on. Even if you're joining us later, feel free to still comment and ask questions, and we'll make sure to pass anything along to Arthur that we cannot answer. And otherwise, I will see you back here next week. We have another founder chat at 10:30 a.m. as per usual. And again, thank you so much, Arthur. I really appreciated it. And it was great getting to know a little bit more about you and about Verdi. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Really
All right.
appreciate it.
No
Yeah.
problem. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Stay safe.